since models are our keeper of our business logic or our application logic, we need a way to be able to say whether our models are valid or invalid. In other words, say that this is a properly constructed or improperly constructed model. And so we're going to take advantage of these Rails validations, which is a way to be able to specify whether our models are properly. And you can see with this Rails guide here that I pointed you to that there's a lot that we can do with that. And so let's go ahead and create some tests to make sure our user model is valid. And so the first thing we want to do is create a real simple test, and it should be valid. Let me explain this a little bit more by going into the Rails console and creating a user model. When you create a model using Rails, it automatically adds a new method called valid to that model. And by default, it's true because we haven't told Rails anything about that. And so what our spec allows you to do is any method that ends in question mark, which is going to return true or false, we can convert it to a function called b and that name without the question mark. So it's going to call the valid question mark, and if it returns true, it is that. If it returns false, then it isn't that. So if valid returns true, it is valid. If valid returns false, it is not valid. So we want the user that we construct to be valid. So let's go ahead and save this file right here and go and try to run our our tests and make sure that this fails, because first test should always fail. So we run, and we have 4 tests, and what comes back is they're all right. Well, that's not good. This test isn't testing anything. Our user is valid, and our test should initially start to be invalid. And the reason why this is true is what we saw up here. Any user is valid, which doesn't make sense. An empty name, email, and password. Well, the problem is, of course, we haven't told Rails how we want to validate it. So I'm going to add some more tests to show a type of validation that we want to add, and then we'll see. We're going to ignore this one temporarily. What we would really like, let's describe this, give it some name. Say an empty name. We don't want to do empty names here. So before we run our test, what we're going to do is we're going to set our name equal to blank, and this should not be valid. And I'm going to slightly modify this and make it blank, because one way that you could go ahead and try to cheat that is to put a space in there. So these are 2 tests now that when we get an empty or a blank name, we don't want those to be valid. And so these are some example validations that we want to occur. So now we've got 2 tests that if we run them, we want them to fail, because we've never run them before. We haven't written any code that should cause them to succeed, and what we get are 2 failures, exactly like we want. Yay! So now we're ready to go to the green stage. So let's edit our user's model, and we need to tell Rails that we want our name not to be blank or empty. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this validates method in here, and we're going to say we want our name to be validated, and what we're going to do is we're going to check that it has a true presence. This should at least take care of the blank, because we want something in name, the empty, I should say. And it turns out, we will see here, that it not only takes care of the empty, but it also doesn't allow blank. And so we just went from red to green with that simple name. And the cool thing is now, if we go back and edit our test file to say that we want all of our newly created users to be valid, now we can get to the point where we run that test and it's going to fail because the new user that we just created here is not valid. And maybe you can see why it's not valid right here. Name can't be blank. We created a user that looks like this: name nil, email nil, password nil, and we told it that it can't be blank. So we need a way to create a user without a blank name. Well, that turns out to be pretty simple. We can go here and we can set in our constructor the name to be something like John Doe, and now when we run our test, we can see that that test is going to go from red back to green, exactly what we wanted it to do. So we can add a couple more validations here and make it real easy. Let's do the same type of validations for email and password that we have for name. So let's go here, empty email and blank email and empty password and blank password. So now we've got 4 more tests, and you can see it doesn't hurt to do small tests at a time. You don't have to do hundreds and hundreds of tests. You can develop these very quickly and slowly. And good, those 4 tests that we just did are failures, and you should probably be able to guess that the way that we're going to validate those is similar to name. We're just going to, instead of saying we're going to validate name, we're going to validate email and password and require them to have a presence as well. So if we run our test one last time here, we will see that now all 10 of our tests are going to turn green because except, of course, I shouldn't talk ahead of myself, we haven't created valid users anymore because we can't have blank emails and passwords. So let's set the email to jdoe@example.com, and our password will be a really bad password. And now if we run our tests, that last test should pass, and we're going to be a very happy camper as a result of that. And so this is what we do for building up our test-driven development in our model side of the world.